Okay, move things along. I'm thinking about time, so. My name is Dave Crawford. I'm the Director of Campus Recreation at St. Martin's University in Mason, Washington. Got some of our students here. Appreciate it coming out. But another side passion along with just general sports and athletics and playing and things like that. I started a company called Floorball Guru a couple of years ago. And so wanted to talk a little bit about just kind of flushing out, developing a new sport. And raise hands, anybody play floor hockey or hockey in general, a little bit here or there, or played it in elementary school growing up and things like that. So that's kind of where a lot of the history for the sport of floorball kind of comes from, kind of developing into a stick type sport that's played on a court, minimal overall protective equipment. It was kind of built back in the Midwest in the 70s. It kind of evolved overseas in Sweden, Norway, Finland areas in Northern Europe. And then it expanded into its current form that it currently is, which is floorball. So floorball is a worldwide sport. It's played all over in a variety of different countries. And it's established. So in Europe in particular, it is as well developed as a sport as any of American sports as basketball or soccer. So youth leagues on up into club level, and then minor league, and then professional and national programs. It's recognized by the International Olympic Committee and is working towards that direction to be an Olympic sport. It's participated in the World Games in 2017 in Poland and will be in the World Games in 2021 in Alabama. So the whole focus of the sport in particular is kind of built around just the hockey, soccer, lacrosse type of a game. And so I found the sport a couple of years ago as I was working and kind of looking at branching out. My background working in sports or recreation kind of based, and was always looking for the next thing and what's out there. And I kind of stumbled across this sport and immediately said, why aren't we doing this? And again, in school, always enjoyed playing hockey. I never played hockey, but I always enjoyed playing floor hockey or going outside and playing stickball with my brothers and kind of goofing around like that. I was an athlete growing up, but was kind of looking for something different. And when I was kind of programming myself in my education and work, I was at the time working with a youth soccer program. We were developing kids as young as 2 to 10 to play soccer. Soccer's been around for a long time. It's pretty well developed throughout the world. In the US, there's a lot of different companies kind of doing this format. And so we were working in Washington and Oregon, engaging kids in the sport. Well, the format that I saw based on instruction when I saw floorball, immediately saw the correlation of we've got something that kind of appeals to a wide audience. People like hockey. Maybe in different areas of the country they can't play it for different reasons, or there's barriers to playing it, such as cost, ice time, minimal facilities, go on and go on and go on. So looking at how can we kind of take this sport in the U.S. and North America and that's already established in other areas around the world and actually start to educate and build people. So about 2 years ago, I started a company called Floorball Guru, and the intent was looking at the broader market of floorball and how could I be different. And so looking, if you're looking to start something new, stuff's already established, how can you step into that space and be different? Because I feel like there's always opportunities in established areas where you can find a niche. Now, how big that niche gets varies, and there's a couple different factors to that. But with floorball right now, specifically in the market, it's all based around manufacturing equipment. So what you'll see is different companies coming from overseas or people that see the same kind of vision and they say, I want to grow the sport. They're going to connect with either overseas throughout Europe, or they're going to manufacture their own equipment and brand it. And then they're going to go out and they're going to come to different people, organizations that are going to say all the benefits that floorball has, how it's different from floor hockey, such as the rules are primarily less contact overall. And you can't stick check, you can't stick lift. So kind of a little bit different sport, similar enough that some people recognize it, playing floor hockey. And then the other parts is the equipment. So it's a little bit shorter stick, it's a plastic blade, it uses a carbon fiber or a fiberglass shaft, but has the same kind of performance that you're going to get out of a hockey stick. And then at the same time it's a ball that's perforated, it has 26 holes in it, and looks like a wiffle ball for most people, or a pickleball for those that know pickleball. And but where you send it is where it's going. So now you're able to kind of have a little bit more of a high performance sport, kind of change the game a little bit to engage a different audience of people that maybe likes hockey, or maybe are looking for something, maybe a lower impact, and kind of go from there. So when I looked at the market and saw what was happening, again, it was that here's the equipment, the sport is great, buy my equipment. And we need those people, we need those manufacturers out there that are promoting the sport, that are getting people playing. We're trying to get the sticks in hands, as we say a lot of times, just get people to play it. Because once we get people to engage with our product or the sport in general, it's a little bit easier to sell, or at least get them into selling the vision of what we see or where we're trying to get them to be. So you'll see different organizations kind of now working through schools, or working with other organizations, hockey organizations in particular, because they're trying to link in the fit between on-ice and off-ice training and development. Well, now we can teach similar skills off the ice in a more controlled environment, and I have to learn to skate, and oh yeah, I have to avoid people, and I have to try to stick in and shoot and pass and move on the ice. You know, you can do a lot of those same basic skill development, but in a more controlled setting, because everyone can run, everyone can move. Again, the barriers to the sport in particular are a bit lower because of stick and a ball. You can go to a gym. A gym rental is far cheaper, especially in some areas where you can get it for $25 an hour, versus an ice rink where you're going to spend minimum $600 an hour, and then beyond, obviously depending on the time of the year, the location, demand, all that other stuff. Not to mention the maintenance of different equipment, ice, and all this other things. So looking at the evaluation of kind of where could I fit in, I started to look at my background and education, both in recreation and athletics as a coach, player, and also to some of my jobs that I had done, and started to kind of target that education would be the focus to it. It's one thing to come in and sell a product and say this product is great, but then if nobody knows about it, knows why it's great, and can see that vision of what you're trying to do for themselves and how it fits their mission and their goals, it's a harder sell in the long term. So I wanted to provide tangible things so that people could see there's somebody out there, there's different people out there that are trying to do this sport. They're failing, they're succeeding, but also then talk about different topics. So I started, when I kind of worked with, it wasn't myself, I was able to have a mentor, Troy Kirby, the guy that puts on this stuff, happened chance to meet him. He saw the value in what I was trying to do and kind of helped push me to start a business. I was very reluctant. The name Floorball Guru, I was very reluctant in the beginning about that. I don't even remember what I wanted it to be, but we kind of settled on Floorball Guru. This is what it's going to be, and it's going to be an educational platform. And the way that I structured it was, before I even launched the business, I wanted to get education focused, so I sat down and I basically told me I couldn't start my company until I had 52 blogs written on a variety of different topics. Now, if you've played sports, you've been in any business, coming up with 52 topics on one singular thing is very difficult, it's a very challenging process to do, but it forced me to kind of think a little bit outside the box and open up into broader experiences that I had. So, while I do talk about intro and education to the sport, and how to stick handle and how to do this and that, I also started to talk about how to develop a league, or how to develop your potential business, or if you're going to teach kids, here's some strategies that you can do in a class. Now, that can cross over into other sports and other things, but it forced me to kind of really dive into different opportunities to engage with an audience I didn't know was out there, or was hoping might be out there. So the audience could be, in mine, it could be athletics, it could be education, it could be just a general parent that sees this program, or a physical education teacher, or a college professor, or whoever that sees something and says, okay, I can relate this to it. So if we're going to talk about generating lead revenue, but you don't know where to go, and you say, I'm going to start this program, oh, we'll just start a lead. Well, how do I do that? Now, there's different opportunities out there, but if you're not looking for it in that sport, you might miss that. Coming to something like this, even myself, I'm learning a lot of different things about sales and techniques that either I knew or maybe improve on for myself, and how do I relate that into my business and what I'm trying to do, either in my day job or in this particular venture as well. So it took a little bit of time to kind of figure that out, but once that 52 was built, I started to figure out how was I going to get the word out. So I started networking and doing what I could to engage on social media specifically. Working and utilizing social media such as LinkedIn was really positive. I had a LinkedIn following to a degree personally, but then started to just engage and look at who could I start to kind of go one-on-one with slowly in different fields such as campus recreation or sports, USA Hockey, and started to kind of find people in those businesses that might have a potential link, and then starting to engage them on social media and just see if they might be interested in what I had to sell. Again, the brand was to sell, the sport is to sell. Are they going to listen to what I'm saying and what I'm putting out every week? But as it generated through social media, I started to, what I call is the bigger part of the business is generating email lists and building in a solid list that I could send out a newsletter every week. So every week I send out a newsletter that has, again, my weekly blog, and then I've slowly been able to add different things like equipment reviews, working on different podcasts and videos, and just trying to provide kind of an all-encompassing product. Again, the whole purpose to start a new sport. Wherever you're at in the country or in the world, if you've just found out about floorball in particular, how could you get started? And here's somebody that's out there trying to do things. And I try to show my successes as much as my failures, because again, it's not always going to work out for everybody. But I try to talk about those different things to make it more personal, because I can't fly around the country, fly around the world, and engage everybody one-on-one in that sales. I have to try to utilize a digital platform primarily to make that sale. And that is that's challenging across the board, because that message is going to hit with some and it's not going to hit with others. People will come and go, or at the very least, my goal is people to know about it so they can have an opinion about it. If they're like, yep, this is for me, or nope, not for me, or at least they might at least be aware of it to engage in some capacity. So down the road, they might come back and say, hey, I remember hearing about this sport, where do I go? And then they're going to go online and they're going to start searching and kind of go from there. And hopefully through everything that I've kind of set up as a platform is going to help with that. Again, successes, failures, it's been a process, but I've tried really hard to engage myself in the process. So it's not just me up here talking or online talking about, hey, everyone should do this, here's what's happening, I've done this in the past, so on and so forth. I teach classes, so I actually go into my local area and I teach with the youth. I try to practice what I preach. And so I teach a weekly class working with the local Parks and Rec, and engage them as an opportunity with the long term that I'm going to be able to kind of walk away from it to a degree, but train the trainers so that I'm showing them that there's a new market, there's a new sport that's out there, that there's a demand for this within the general population that's already playing soccer, already playing basketball, already doing these different things. But here's another opportunity. And then as that grows, I get a chance to work with them and engage with them, and they get to see what I've been talking about, how it's successful, and how it might work within their organization. And then how can we, then the long term of that is how do we transition from me doing that work, working kind of in conjunction with them, to training their staff to do that work. So then I can start to broaden a little bit bigger into the other areas where I live specifically. And then I can use that as a real world application when I talk to other cities, other states, other organizations of, here's what I've done working with youth, and then how we've progressed that throughout. So like right now, I've spent about 2 years working on my own time, aside from my day job, going and teaching kids how to play floorball and engaging their families and hearing the stories that come back. And it's kind of funny that my wife is a teacher in the area as well, and she has kids that go to her school that are in my classes. And they will talk to her about me. Hey, Coach Dave, I can't wait to see him, or we had so much fun. She's Mrs. Crawford, I'm Coach Dave. And just that relationship that you can have with kids on that one-to-one level is really important. But also the stories of, my child has played soccer, they played football, they played these other sports, they just didn't connect for whatever reason. But they found this sport, and it's kind of opened up a door for them and a passion that maybe they found for athletics in general, but specifically found a role where they fit. And I think that's been a big part of the mission when trying to kind of grow, is how do we get into that level where it's an emotional response for somebody, whatever they're engaged with, that they then start to connect beyond or what you're telling them or showing them, that they're starting to kind of develop those passions and growth as they move forward. And it's been an interesting process, because this, as a sport, floorball is primarily a grassroots program. So you're seeing a lot of this throughout the rest of the world, in developing countries, throughout Africa, down in South America, in Asia, and as well as throughout Europe, in other areas where it hasn't quite taken hold of. So there's a lot of effort to continue to grow at that grassroots level. And I think a lot of that is, in the long term, going to be predicated on the ability to educate people on a broad base, but have resources in order for them to be successful. Because the last thing I would want to do is to promote the sport and say, you can do it, but not have anything tangible for anybody to kind of follow up with. And that kind of leads into the long-term vision and growth of the business. So it started with, again, developing content that I could push out weekly. Now, I've been traveling a lot. My job, it keeps me really busy working with students. I don't have a lot. I have 2 kids, a 3 and a 6-year-old, and a wife, and life, and things like that. So, how can I sit down and write blog posts on this topic every week to go out consistently? It's been over a year and a half. And consistently, without fail, a blog goes out, the newsletter goes out. I'm working on podcasts and all this other stuff. But the core of it is that weekly podcast, and that little bit, about 500 to 700 words of a topic. Well, again, goes back to the beginning. 52 weeks, blogs written before I even launched it, so they could go out. And as they're done, started working again and working again. So before 2017 ended, I had 2018 blogs completely written for 52 weeks, loaded up and ready to go. Probably at the end of this month, I'll have 2019 completed. Now the question comes up is, well, what happens if something changes or something happens and you have to adjust? It's easy. It's already uploaded. I timestamp everything. I can go in and change dates and move things around. When they launched, when they announced that that floorball would be part of the World Games, I saw it, wrote up a blog about it, loaded it up, changed some things around, done. The amount of time I actually spent on that and focusing on that was pretty minimal. It has allowed me to be prepared for when my dog died like a year ago, and didn't really want to write a blog about floorball. It wasn't really something I wanted to do at that time. Kind of focusing on that. Well, I already had everything done, and I could just kind of do its thing. And then as we go, I'll be writing a blog about interactions with people I've had here, interactions I've had at Collegiate Conference last week, and I'll be at Arizona next week working with physical educators within the state. Again, education, talking about how we can get this going. And there's only so much I can do personally on that point. And so the next level for me was, well, I guess I should write a book. And I'm not somebody that ever thought I would write a book. I wasn't 100% sure how it would look, but my focus was not just write a book about floorball and you're going to read about it and you're going to learn all this history and not have anything tangible. So it evolved into kind of 4 sections in a 9-month process, kind of working when I could to write it. So I wrote a curriculum for it so that I could go to a physical education program and say, hey, this sport is really great. Here's all the benefits for it, low cost, so you're going to engage students. By the way, you're going to have a curriculum that meets standards. Now if there's like, well, does it meet our state standards? No problem. Let's walk you through how this meets, that can meet different standards within, or if we're looking at physical literacy and how the students can meet those standards for each state as things change. And thankfully, again, having a wife that is an elementary school teacher that's focused on childhood development was really helpful at that point to really think through how are we going to be able to teach these things, and then also kind of trying and failing in my classes of how was I going to teach this game. But again, I pull different experiences from my world in coaching soccer and playing basketball and all these other sports to say, well, I can use that here, we can use that here. Again, it's not necessarily recreating the wheel, but just going, hey, these works, and maybe we have to adjust things, we have to describe things a little bit differently. And so, again, focus on the curriculum because I thought that was the most important part. Then it evolved into, well, we need to talk a little bit about the introduction so you have an understanding of what are the basic rules and kind of all this other stuff. And then kind of working through is like, well, we need to make it a little bit longer. What else could we put in there? Okay, so then we started looking at additional tactics and how could we move on the court and how can we teach some of this a little more advanced part of the game to make it a little bit more fun. And then finally it was like, it's not quite long enough, we need to add another section. So I looked at refereeing because working with referees, the development of student athletes and student referees for intramural sports and seeing the importance of having that evolved into that. So now I have my book, The Floorball Guru Primer. I shamelessly plug it as much as I can because I'm really proud of it. Again, I never thought I would write it. It was a lot of fun. It was very difficult if you're not really into writing. And I talk about, again, blogging and all this stuff. Writing is not my first choice when I get a chance to do things, but it's evolved. And it took a lot of time. And when this was done, I was done looking at this and not looking at it again, kind of a thing. But it goes back to when we're looking at how can I develop this sport and what's become a passion for me and has literally taken me around the world as a player and coach. I've played in Latvia with the U.S. national team. I'm the current U19 women's national team coach. We were competing in Switzerland this May, and just seeing all of that come together really helped provide a bigger vision for where I could see that sport grow. And I think it comes back to, in the long term, whatever business you're looking at, or whether it's starting a business or you work for a business, do you have a vision for where that's going to go? Because when you get hired, you're going to walk in and they're going to say, okay, what are we going to do? Now, can you jump on board with the mission statement or what's happening in your department? Or do you have to kind of adjust and say, I see a trend in what's happening, I'm going to move this way, and here's what I think is going to be the best. And I've done that at St. Martin's University where I work, and trying to see a broader vision and a plan for it, knowing that plan is not going to happen overnight. And so, developing anything in a new business, a new sport, a new venture, it's going to take time. And being patient in that time is really difficult. I'm fortunate and able to have opportunities where I can, I have a full-time job, I can do this at night and kind of fix and be creative with that space. It'd be a little more stressful if it was my full-time, I need to survive off of it for sure. But it's out there. And so now, from about 2 years ago, doing this, progressed it to now there's an actual educational platform that people can go on, constantly working on content. When I look at my vision, the next platform for that would be video, and actually doing more one-on-one sessions of how to teach different things, but breaking it down and trying to break barriers down for anybody that says, I see it, but I don't know how to teach it, or I don't know how to play it. Well, here's a platform where we can try to break that barrier down and say, well, go here. Learn it visually, read it, kind of interact with it. I get phone calls and emails from different people, and I'll actually kind of engage and work with them. A different university that wanted to start floorball reached out. How do we start this? And kind of walking them through some of the basics to it because I want them to be successful. I don't want to give them, here's the rule book for the sport, go have fun, because the rule book is a little bit thick, it's a little bit convoluted, so how can we break that down? And so kind of meeting them where they're at so they can be successful and that as they learn and as that growth continues to expand, it will just grow exponentially on their ability to understand the game, appreciate the game, and then hopefully in the long term be successful with whatever they're doing. And then again, getting out there, spreading the message in whatever capacity, whether it's talking in engagements, interacting on social media in areas that, maybe there's somebody talking about a different sport. I might engage on social media and talk about how the benefits for floorball can bring with that. Or if they're looking at how can we cross-train basketball players, we're looking for something different. Floorball can be that way, and I try to work with different teams to kind of get them out of the norm for their traditional sports and say, let's try something new. And I'm not gonna lie, when you get a 7-foot basketball player that's really only played basketball the majority of their life, and I get them to play floorball, it's really interesting to see how they interact. But it really just opens up opportunities for team building, esprit de corps, and just kind of building within that unit of team. But they're also going to work their butt off because you're constantly running the whole time. So there's a lot of different components to it, and I think thinking outside the box is a really key component to anything you're trying to do as much as possible. And at the same time, be willing to try, be willing to fail. Because you're going to fail a lot as you're starting anything new, whether it's a new product, new business, new venture, kind of things like that. So actually this, and the transition from I wanted to get to a certain point where I'm at, well, we've done classes, stretch myself a little bit, we're going to start a league. And it's actually going to start on Sunday, and we're going to see what it's going to be smaller, we're going to be in a smaller space, we're going to play 3-on-3, just get people playing. We're trying to interact with the kids. Again, I created a platform. The kids are coming. The parents see the value. The kids are having fun. They're learning. Well, I need to progress further. Otherwise, it's going to regress. So I have to progress further in the process. Now I need a place for them to go and build the sport. So now the next step is the league, 3-on-3. And after that, hopefully it becomes a 5-on-5 league. And it's kind of, at this point, I'm trying to figure out, is it me-driven, or do I really start to engage with the city to kind of push that league and really become more of a support system at that point, where they're now have a system to set up the leagues, and I just become more of a consultant or a trainer or kind of things like that. So it's really interesting to kind of see where that will go. I'm not 100% sure where that will go in the long term in the development of it, but I personally believe when you're setting up anything new, you got to have a framework set up to expand. Otherwise, if you just expand, if I just jump to a league and targeted only adults, it won't grow in the long term because I have nothing coming up behind it to sustain it and then build it from there. And so time will tell what the long term will be with the sports. There's opportunities, again, like the World Games are coming, and the best in the world are going to be showcased. To see what the sport can be at a high level, at a large level. But my long-term vision, I see this going into high school, becoming a high school sport, going into colleges as becoming a full varsity sport, minor league, and even potential professional sports. In the sports business, looking at what's out there, what's new, what's fast, what's the time frame, I think it can definitely fit that niche going forward. But it's a process, and it's been an interesting one nonetheless. So. Any thoughts, questions? Anybody has?
How did you figure out your market?
So the market in particular has been interesting because, I mean, for me, when I saw it, it was like youth. Like, we need to get this into the kids, they need to play. A lot of people focus on the schools and go, oh, we just need to get this into the schools, so that's the market. I agree with that, I don't agree with that as the sole right now. A lot of people are targeting hockey because of that cross sport kind of thing. The thing that I have found overall is USA Hockey in particular, and Hockey World, they've known about floorball for quite a while. This isn't a new concept for them. They haven't jumped in fully. And so I think there's a couple different answers for that. I think hockey players want to play hockey. That's what they want to do. So for me, that market was, I'm not going to worry about that. There's other people that are focusing on that market. I think the key and in the long term, you think about the number of people that aren't playing hockey, that are playing other sports, that might be interested in floorball, but they're playing basketball, they're playing soccer, they're playing football. Why are they playing that sport? Is it convenience because, or is it a lack of opportunity? There is nothing else out there to play. And so trying to really target down more you play soccer, you play basketball, you play some of these other athletic sports. If you're athletic, you can play a sport. You can learn some of the stick handling and some of the other stuff. So I tried to focus more on that market in particular, and how can I not necessarily steal, but try to encourage other players that, hey, here's another opportunity you might play. And then actually, as it evolved, a market that I'm sad to say surprised me, that I really think will be a big market. And it surprised me only because I was blinded to it for whatever reason, is the female market, and that girls in particular. And just here's another team sport that's out there that we can promote and push for a number of really positive reasons that provide more opportunities. And it's just I feel an untapped market for a number of reasons. We don't need to get into any of that. But becoming and taking a step out and becoming the U19 women's coach and interacting with those ladies was so positive, so encouraging, and then seeing the actual event on such a large scale, just how much fun it was. Why not? Why are we not pushing that? Why can't we grow it at the young levels and get girls involved and grow them all the way up? And so here's another opportunity. Whatever sport you want to play, here's just one more thing to throw into the mix. And so that really has become a surprising market for me to be like, why wasn't I? And kind of unpacking that a little bit. So I really think there's that in the long term, that's I think going to be one of the bigger markets for the sport. And I really wish there's emphasis on it. I don't think there's enough. I think we need to do more in promoting the sport, especially targeting girls and women, to kind of engage. That's just another opportunity. Again, more opportunities, more education, and just getting out for everybody. But it took a little bit of time to figure out what that market would be. And again, I think it will evolve on who to target, but that's kind of where I've kind of nailed it down a little bit. Yeah.
I really commend you for following your passion and promoting this new sport. And along those lines, you kind of mentioned some of your personal life. How has it been, how have you been able to balance having a full-time job and a family along with growing this company? I didn't catch how long you've been doing it, and also if you can speak to how the business is going, if you see potentially, if you have revenue streams, and if you see
Sure. that
moving into your full-time job.
Yeah, I am blessed beyond measure because my wife is amazing. See, it's on video. See. No, she's amazing and has been supporting me, and without that, I wouldn't have done it. I'm equally blessed because I found a job I love, and this is not this wasn't I need to start a business because I want to get out of my current job. I love my job, I love going to my job every day and working with students in campus recreation and building from there. The really convenient thing about it is it's really flexible, and I'm also really well supported by my bosses to go out and do these things. I was a little surprised when I kind of mentioned hey, I wrote a book, the overwhelming support that I received from my job about it. So I'm lucky. I mean, not everyone's going to have that kind of thing, and I think we forget too. Again, this is not and was not an easy process, but we forget how much time we actually have during the day to be productive. And I go to work, and I'll go to work from 8 to 5. There's days I might go to work from 5 to 2 a.m. Just depends on what programs we have going on. So what a lot of times I'll do is I'll go to work, eat 5 or however late or whatever, come home, focus on my kids and my family, and then when the kids go to bed, I've got 2-3 hours. Try not to stay up too late, but I got at least two, maybe 4 hours of dead time that I try to, when as much as I can and have the motivation to do, to utilize that time to create content and develop. And yeah, there's times that I don't always want to do that, but sometimes you just force yourself, and you really think about 500, 700 words for a blog post. When you start going, it kind of writes itself to a degree, depending on what you're talking about. You can really just kind of go, and I can kind of get into that. There's times where I'll start writing and I'll just stop and be like, I don't know what I'm writing. Doesn't mean I don't have show on or something like that, or my wife's sitting next to me. But when we were starting it, she was going through her master's degree, so we were kind of both proximity. She was doing master's online in mathematics, so she wasn't really going to talk to me at that point. Anyway, so I might as well do something. And I didn't want to know what she was doing because I wasn't going to understand it, and things like that. So it's finding those passions. Again, I'm lucky. I have many passions, and I have a lot of time to figure that out, and a very supportive family to do that. I'm lucky. That's not the norm. I think for anybody that is looking to do something like that, if there's a passion you want to, whether it's writing or you want to start something, you've got the time. You just gotta be creative, and maybe that means I don't go out that night or that weekend or whatever, and I really just buckle down and just get it done, because in the long term that's going to set you up for success. But it by no means has been an easy process. As far as revenue streams go and building a business, at this point I am a startup, so it is far more sweat equity and expenses going out. But I firmly believe in the long term, the growth of the sport. Now, whether that means the sport and everything grows so big and what I'm doing that I have to quit my job, when I come to that point, it'll be a very difficult decision on what I ultimately, do I go to pursue that, or do I stay and just kind of keep that same thing going? That will depend kind of in the moment, especially because I love both jobs and what I'm doing, but. I think long term, it's going to be about the education platform for me that I'm setting it, because I could sell equipment. I could brand my own equipment and get it shipped from China and do what everyone else is doing, or I could become a retailer and start that process. I don't personally feel like the market is quite ready for, we've already got that out there. So now I'm just one more really fighting for, right now, a small piece. And I think separating myself, and it goes back to that idea of like, what am I going to be and how am I going to separate myself? Start Googling floorball articles, start Googling, there's just not that much out there. So it's kind of like right now I'm the voice for that, and that works. And I'm hoping more people join the conversation. In some cases I'll maybe challenge people, like, come on, tell me your voice, like get in on this. And I think most people don't, because either fear of what will people say. I wrote an article and people hated it. Or are people going to listen to what I'm saying? Or they just don't want to do the work because it takes a ton of work. And you don't see that work. You just see the end product a lot of times. So I think for me that writing the book was a big piece. I think ideally I would love to make a bunch of money on it. It would be awesome. I think right now where I'm at, the bigger point is I just want people to know about the sport and play it, because I love it. I've seen the impact it's had on the people that have played it, and I think it has a real spot in the sports world where I think who knows what's going to happen in 20 years in our sports world, and how will things change? Will it evolve? What are people going to want to do? Or are we just going to stick with the same kind of real popular sports, or is something else going to walk in? Who knows? I mean, rugby's making a big push. Lacrosse is kind of doing their thing. We don't even know at this point what it's going to be like. So. Yeah, just kind of pushing forward from there. So, any other questions? Thoughts? Awesome. Well, I really appreciate everyone coming out. Again, if you want to have more questions, thoughts, concerns, please come talk to me. I'd love to engage. Otherwise, we are done. So, thank you.